That, yeah. Lawrence Schiller. We're talking about Lawrence Schiller tonight. He was the writer of The Killing of Sharon Tate, and he's generally known for being a photographer and journalist. And he wrote books about lots of controversial people like O.J. Simpson, and he wrote about Patty Hearst. And I've covered him twice before with the Lawrence Schiller thing, and with the uh, Susan Atkins, Killing of Sharon Tate book, and Dennis Hopper, because they were going to make a film about Manson that never got made. And he mentions it in this interview that I've just put up on the Substack that we found. It was really difficult to find. It was from outtakes from that movie he made with Lawrence Schiller, An American Dreamer, I think it's called, is the right title, which is on YouTube. We, like I said, did a stream about all that before in the past. And I just wanted to talk generally about Lawrence Schiller because he seems like quite a suspicious person because he jumps on a lot of controversial subjects. But other people just say he's an ambulance chaser. He jumps on controversial subjects, and that's all it's about. So sort of you decide. Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, An American Dreamer. Me and you watched it together, did we? Yeah. Because I've watched the whole thing, and I showed a clip of it on the Dennis Hopper stream that I did. Just a bit where he talks about Manson, but did we watch the whole thing? Yeah, the whole thing's worth a watch. Sort of Dennis Hopper's obviously not very well though. I think he's having psychedelic burnout, but yeah, it's worth a watch. And I'm going to talk about that briefly and show a screenshot of what Dennis Hopper actually looked like in that film as well. But yeah, I'll get into that once I start talking. Was RR Underground? Haven't seen him yet. But yeah, RR Underground has uploaded the after show from last week to his channel. If people want to see the after show, if you missed it, where he came on and co-hosted the after show with me, it's on his channel now. He's not here yet. We've shared that in the Facebook group, and I'll share it on the subreddit as well for people that don't do Facebook. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah, he's totally in full Manson mode in that flick, and I'm going to cover Apocalypse Now as well because he's shockingly acting like Manson. If you look at it, you may not have seen it the first time you watched it, but once you know, you can see he's acting like Manson in Apocalypse Now as well. And I'm going to cover that in a couple of weeks. Yeah, yeah. Welcome back, Dawn, as well. Dawn's been ill, haven't you? Yeah. Good to see you again. Right. It's not picking it up when the cat rubs against the cable, is it? Can you hear that on the audio? I hope not. Right, I'll start the presentation. So we've got something to discuss. Right, Schiller built a career by turning up at the biggest scandals of his time. He was among the last to photograph Marilyn Monroe before she died, wrote Patty Hearst's story, milked OJ for books, always in the middle of the storm. But what makes him so interesting here is how he shaped the LSD panic, then the Manson panic, and later scrubbed parts of his own history when it looked too dirty. Before Manson, Schiller was already in the drug panic business. In 1966, he published LSD, one of the first mainstream scare books about acid. It wasn't a counterculture celebration, it was a warning. He painted LSD as a menace, exactly the message politicians and police wanted out there. As the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, and others were spreading it. Right from the start, Schiller was packaging drug fear for mass audiences. On his own website, he even boasts that the book helped push LSD towards being made illegal. And that's a screenshot from his website, published. Yeah, and it says after this book they made LSD illegal, basically. And also Richard Alpert, who was later known as Ram Dass, wrote this book as well. And Sidney Cohen, Harvard psychologist and close collaborator of Timothy Leary. Richard Alpert, this is later famous as the spiritual teacher Ram Dass. Be here now. Curiously, in 1966, he co-authored LSD with psychiatrist Sidney Cohen, a government alarmist. He initially wrote positive articles about LSD, but then became an alarmist. And journalist Lawrence Schiller. The book mixed pro and anti-drug viewpoints, with Alpert likely added to give balance. It's a strange footnote since he's remembered today as a champion of the psychedelic spiritual side. So yes, it's just weird that he was there in that book. If he's such an advocate for LSD, why was he writing in the scare books that got LSD made illegal? Makes you question who all these people were. Schiller wasn't just writing about LSD, he was behind the camera too. In 1966, Life magazine sent him to cover Ken Kesey's acid tests. He photographed everyone. Timothy Leary, Neil Cassidy, Owsley Stanley, the Grateful Dead, the whole psychedelic inner circle. These photos later became the visual backdrop to Tom Wolfe's The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. What's striking is the double edge. The pictures are wild and joyful, but the captions framed LSD as dangerous. Schiller was already shaping how the establishment wanted the scene remembered. What's odd is that the merry pranksters trusted him at all, given that he later boasted his book helped get LSD outlawed. It makes you wonder if they misjudged him, or if Schiller was playing both sides from the start. And the pranksters even trusted him enough to show up uninvited at his Los Angeles home one night. He found them skinny dipping in his pool, tripping out of their skulls. Instead of calling the cops, Schiller jumped right in with them. His wife wasn't thrilled, but the pranksters saw him as one of the few photographers they could trust to capture their world. Schiller himself later reflected on this, saying he survived in that era by integrating himself into people's lives, convincing them he wasn't there to judge or impose a conclusion. He never admits his role in getting LSD outlawed, but he openly describes how he won people's trust while shaping stories that often served the establishment. Just interesting, isn't it? And this is like back in 1966, he's already involved in all the LSD stuff. And I'm going to show you some of these photos that he took. This is his website. Is that on the screen now? Yes. In a moment of inspiration on LSD, a user creates a self-portrait on the wall of an apartment in Hollywood. You see the little picture she's drawn on the wall there. Yeah, listen to this caption. A first timer in the throes of a trip, I experienced the desire to pull my hair out and pull my face off. That was not my experience of LSD, but yeah, that's what apparently this woman said. Early morning under the influence of LSD, a woman is transfixed by a light bulb. That can't be good for your eyes, can it? Staring directly at a light bulb like that for a long time. But she regretted that. Prior to its classification as a Schedule 1 drug and before the advent of music festivals, LSD's recreational use was low profile and generally limited to small groups of friends in intimate settings. It's a good one as well. Go dancing to the Grateful Dead. A user moves to the music of the Grateful Dead with his own shadow until he collapses at the acid test on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, California, 1965. Users trip to a liquid light show at the acid test on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. The first timer during a trip, I experienced the desire to die, but not an actual death, a young tripper said later. See, all the captions are of people talking about death and wanting to die and pull their own skin off and all this sort of stuff. But like, he never posted any captions where people said anything positive. Loads of people say positive things as well, but he never reported that. It's an interesting photo as well. And this is Ram Dass, spiritual guru Ram Dass, dropping into Panga Canyon. This one's taken. My most profound psychedelic experiences have been outside in settings untarnished by man's mind. No, this is Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary began his study of psychedelic drugs after being introduced to psilocybin in 1960, while a lecturer in clinical psychology at Harvard. And there's pictures of him in 1966. Look at him in his tweed shirt and his, and his short hair. He was when he was a clinical psychology lecturer. Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, I've only read the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, I think, of Tom Wolfe. Yeah. These are the pictures he took, and like I say, the captions are all like quite alarmist. He didn't post any of the more positive things people said while on LSD. And then there's another article. There's a couple of photos you haven't seen on this one. I don't think that one was on there, was it? That one wasn't. Further, has anyone seen the film Insidious as well? It's a modern horror film. But she calls the dimension where people are like held in limbo, where the little boy's in a coma and he's being held. She calls it the further. And I thought, is that a Merry Pranksters reference to their bus? The further. The Merry Pranksters barreled around the US on a modified 1939 school bus nicknamed Further. Painted and frequently repainted with vibrant psychedelic imagery, the bus crossed the country to the New York World's Fair in 1966 before returning. After that, it would be used for West Coast adventures to Beatles concerts, for example, with the pranksters jamming on the roof as they drove. We saw Grateful Dead guy, didn't we? I think that one was in the others, wasn't it? Yeah, and that one was. I'm going to summarise most of the article, but it's interesting what he said at the bottom here. Schiller's life essay, dated March 25, 1966, was an eye-opener, revealing a new world that would that most would never experience themselves. But would the story be possible today? I couldn't exist in today's media, Schiller admits. To do a job well, you used to have to ingratiate yourself into people's lives. You had to point out to them that you weren't there with a preconceived idea. You weren't coming to judge them or to already have a conclusion. Journalism has become not a 100-yard dash, but a 50-yard dash. Everybody's racing for the finish line. Who's going to get out there first? That type of journalism. In the 60s and 70s and in the 80s, it doesn't really exist anymore. Into the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Doesn't really exist anymore. Yeah, and the electric Kool-Aid acid test has been republished with loads of his photos as well. That does actually look quite nice if you're interested in seeing nice books of the photos. And that's him now. Well, more recently. Yeah, but that's before even the Manson murders happen, and he gets involved here through the lawyers somehow. Apparently, he seems to introduce Dennis Hopper to Manson's lawyers. So back to the slides. The parallel is hard to ignore. First, he sells the LSD scare in '66. Then, 4 years later, he's fronting Susan Atkins' confession in The Killing of Sharon Tate, a book full of lurid, inaccurate claims tying the murders to drug-induced cult madness. Two different scandals, same Schiller playbook. Exaggerate, distort, and make LSD the villain. Atkins' supposedly spontaneous confession has every appearance of being contrived subterfuge. Her legal strategy from the beginning was to put on a crazy act. When Susan Atkins was jailed, she started bragging to cellmates. Schiller swooped in with her lawyers, and suddenly her stories were being ghostwritten by LA Times reporter Jerry Cohen. The result was The Killing of Sharon Tate, rushed into print in January 1970, before the trial even started. Atkins' tall tales became the prosecution's first draft. And that's the article. I'll link to that, the full article. That's the actual article that they published, defying the gag order. Lawrence Schiller was given the task of organising the sale of the supposed Atkins confession, and was granted credit for the quickly thrown together paperback version, The Killing of Sharon Tate. The case had a gag order, but it didn't matter. Schiller got the Atkins confession in the LA Times and in bookstores. Her so-called words became the prosecution's script, minus the inconvenient truth about drugs and gang connections. The book wasn't just journalism, it was narrative control. Yeah, and that came out in December 14th, 1969. The case against Mastermind Manson is being presented to the public even before his first court appearance. The book is quite literally the defense doing the prosecution's work for them. This is what launched the Manson circus. The Killing of Sharon Tate presented the case against Manson before he even set foot in court. Even Schiller admitted the prosecution didn't stand in the way. The book poisoned the jury pool and sold the Helter Skelter storyline that the media would dine out on for years. And again, the Life magazine article calling it a love and terror cult came out on December 19th, before his trials even happened. The trial didn't begin until July 24th, 1970, because everything else before that is pre-trial or grand jury and that. So his trial didn't actually even begin till July. And they'd already said all this. And no matter how you feel about Charles Manson, I'm not no way a Manson apologist or anything like that, no matter how you feel about him. It's not a fair trial, is it really? Here's the kicker. While the world obsessed over singing Manson girls, real history was happening. Fred Hampton was assassinated. The Chicano moratorium filled the streets, and the Vietnam vets exposed war crimes. But those headlines were drowned out. Schiller's book helped create a distraction that kept the cameras pointed at Spahn Ranch, not Chicago or Vietnam. And I've done streams about all these things that were used, that happened while the trial was happening. And were underreported while this trial was being reported. Yeah. Yes. He very definitely wrote and made lots of money from it, but it's not on his website. He's ashamed of it for some reason. Yeah, and I'll show you actually on his website the list of his books, just to show you like the glaring omission of it and the type of things he's written books about. Where are they all? I think I showed this on the last stream I did actually. Is that on the screen? Not yet. There you go. Sorry about that. See, look, the LSD book's there, and this book, 73. So the Killing of Sharon Tate should be somewhere around here, 1970. He publishes that, but no, he doesn't. And he did take it. It's amazing who he photographed and when as well. He photographed the Jackson Five when they first got to Hollywood after they played the Daisy and all that. So yeah, this is the kind of things he wrote books about, but he doesn't mention the Killing of Sharon Tate. He does mention the Dennis Hopper movie in American Dreamer. I just want to make that point. Schiller is still proud of his Monroe book, his Patty Hearst book, his OJ books, but the one thing missing from his website, The Killing of Sharon Tate. He made money from it, but it's gone, erased. Maybe because it wasn't just a book, it was part of the prosecution's case, and too obviously part of the scam. I also think as well they were blocked from making money from it. He may have initially made some money from it, but they were blocked from making any money from it as well. In the end, I don't think anyone really made a lot of money. And it comes up when in the penalty phase, Susan talks about Caballero. Caballero was the lawyer that mainly did all this, and she talks a bit about it. But in the end, they weren't allowed to make much money from it. That's probably why he doesn't promote it anymore, because he doesn't make any money from it. That's what I think, anyway. Not so much because he's ashamed, because there's all the other stuff he's done that's quite lurid, and he's not hiding that. So I don't think it's that. I think it's just because he doesn't make any money from it. He doesn't talk about it and advertise it. Yeah, and then we get into Dennis Hopper. Like I said, I've done a whole stream about this, but yeah. Yeah, quote from Hopper: "The people in the Tate House were into some bad shit." 2 years later, Schiller pops up again, this time with Dennis Hopper. Hopper repeated lurid LAPD gossip about whipping parties and sex tapes at Cielo Drive, claiming that 3 days before the murders, a dealer had been whipped by 25 people for giving out bad dope. He said the victims were into some bad shit: sadism, masochism, even bestiality, and that what happened to them was unfortunate but inevitable. And guess who arranged for Hopper to meet Charles Manson in jail? Schiller. Hopper didn't come away hating Manson either. In his 1971 interview, he is almost admiring. That's Hopper in Easy Rider. And this is what he looked like in The American Dreamer when he was fixing up to play Manson. Hopper was a method actor. After meeting Manson, he grew a beard, darkened his hair, started to look the part. He was lining himself up to play Manson in a film Schiller was trying to make. But the movie never happened, or whether Schiller was going to produce it or what, I don't know. Who the hell would have actually made it? But Schiller was obviously going to be involved. Probably too close to Polanski's studio and too in bad taste. Another Schiller project erased. Hopper himself later recalled that meeting vividly. The difference between Manson and those people in the Tate House is that he admits to what he is doing. He doesn't lie. He'd been wanting to see me for a couple of months before you set it up, Larry. His lawyers had tried to reach me about doing his life story as a movie or something. But when we sat down together on the 8th floor of the Hall of Justice, about 3 feet apart, he didn't bullshit me. Manson said, all my life I've been a movie. Now don't you think that's a movie? He said, I'm a big star, you know that? I'm really a big star. Hopper remembered talking for 2 hours and coming away thinking Manson still saw himself as innocent and as a star in his own movie. And that full interview, like I say, I managed to transcribe it from a photograph of it we found, and it's on the Substack now. It's been quite popular if you want to see the whole thing, because he says a few more things about Manson as well. That's sort of paraphrased what he says. Look at the pattern. Schiller wrote the LSD scare book. He organised Atkins' confession into the killing of Sharon Tate. He set up Hopper's Manson interview and movie project. Every time he created a marketable story, and every time the real issues, the drug trade, the gang links, the political crises, got buried. Was he just a hustler, or was he working like an agent, planting narratives for the system? And that is the final slide, I think. Yes. But yeah, what was he doing? That's the thing. He's just. It seems that, like, if you believe the MK Ultra theories, that that's like MK Ultra Central. The names of everyone that he's mentioned, photographing there. The Grateful Dead and the pranksters. Everyone that's really involved in LSD and was probably being studied and manipulated. Even if they didn't know it, they might not have been intentionally, but they were probably being studied and watched and monitored and all that, weren't they? For MK Ultra reasons or whatever. And Schiller was right there photographing everything. That's the crazy thing. And then he gets involved in the Manson case. He was involved with O.J. Simpson, but just as a journalist. So, but why did he chase all these stories? Yeah, that's it. He's a photographer. So who actually writes the words? Because it says the killing of Sharon Tate was ghostwritten by a journalist, someone called Cohen. That's it. So, and I don't know how he could have wrote the LSD book as well. But if you look at the way that's credited, it's not the pictures he's credited for. It's the writing part of it. So, who actually wrote that? Maybe he wrote some stuff, and he's supposed to have written an article as well about LSD that was published. Yeah. I think it may have had an indirect role in the murders, but it depends what you believe MK Ultra was. Like, because a lot of people now think that the LSD distribution. Sorry, my cat's scratching himself. There you go. The LSD distribution was part of MK Ultra. Like a wider mission for them to get everyone tripping, sort of thing, for some reason. And then they tried to pull it back when it got out of control, didn't they? Obviously by making it illegal, but it didn't work. So to that extent, because the Manson girls were arrested for distributing LSD in Mendocino, weren't they? Went to jail for a little while. They all got out, but they were obviously involved with distributing LSD. So that's the only extent I believe they could have been before the murders involved with MK Ultra type stuff. I don't believe that it was planned to happen or they were programmed to do it pre the murders or anything like that. But they were involved in LSD distribution, weren't they? For that one, I think did they say Sydney Cohen? Let me go back through the slides. This is just for the killing of Sharon Tate. I don't know who wrote the rest of his books, and he made the other guy might be slightly wrong, and he did write some stuff because he wrote articles as well. Where is it? Jerry Cohen. Jerry Cohen is the name of the actual journalist that wrote the book. Yeah. And I think from what I've ascertained about the book, it was literally just they recorded Susan Atkins on a tape and a guy transcribed it. That's basically pretty much what the book is here. And she would say anything to get attention. She obviously, they call it histrionic personality, don't they? Where you would just say anything to get attention, even if it's bad attention. And that she was obviously going through a phase of that, wasn't she? And she'd just say anything. And these guys recorded it and wrote it down and published it before their trial had even started. That's the controversial thing. And no matter how you feel about what they did and what they deserve or whatever, it's not a fair trial if this has been done, is it? And it wasn't a fair trial. Yeah, sex is the devil. Yeah, well, that's it. This is the thing, people don't look at text because text is kind of weird. How text ends up with when he's with Dean, not Dean. Who's the first friend he had? David Neal. A guy shows up and gives them rosewood seeds and weird stuff like that. And Charles Winans, did he know Charles Winans? What was Charles Winans doing with him? And did he give him drugs as well? There's more to text. People need to look more at that. Everyone's just focused on Charles Manson and Susan Atkins in this case, aren't they? The text. There's funny stuff about text as well. Yeah. David Neal. You spelled it sorry. David Neal was his roommate, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, him and David didn't have a reaction. So people have suggested, was David given a placebo? So David wasn't really given the drug, but Tex was, and that's why Tex freaked out and David didn't. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to stream about Tex next week, actually, sanity throughout the decades, because it's interesting what it says. Because I've done many streams about what it said about his mental state at the time of the crimes, at the murders. But if you look at his parole hearings over the years, it changes what they say is wrong with him. And you might be quite shocked to hear what they say now. Yeah, so I won't blow that yet, but yeah. That next week, so that'll be what I cover. Takes his sanity through the years and what psychiatrists say now compared to what they said at the time of his trial. Yeah, Paul Caruso's office. And she talks a lot about Caballero at the penalty phase and Caballero being involved with this and Caballero convincing her to write it. And he said stuff to her like, oh, you can save the money up for your son and give it to your son in the future and all this sort of shit, you know. And she was saying, she says in court, I said, I don't want the money. And they said, oh, you can save it for your son or whatever. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, that's it. The pool boy mafia. Well, that's the idea. Yeah, that there's that these men that seem to be serving as the houseboys were all working together and robbing each other, or robbing the people they were supposed to be serving. Like, yeah, because Billy Doyle and Tom Harrigan, got robbed by their houseboy, didn't they? So were they all doing that? Yeah, this is a point as well. No one writes about the LaBiancas, do they? There's no book about the LaBiancas. Uh, Another thing I've noticed, there's no book written about Patricia Krenwinkel as well. All the other girls and Susan. And has anyone written a book about Sandy? I don't think there's a book about Sandy either, is there? You'd think that there would be one. I know actually it looks quite good, the book about Lynette. I've got to read that. It looks quite good. Quite balanced, you know. It's not like a scare book about her. It's just a balanced assessment of her, life. Yeah. Oh, what? Women being bald and wearing wigs in 1967. I'd have to look at that. That's weird, isn't it? Predicting shit that's going to happen. Because he'd be referring to the girls shaving their heads at the trial. When they all got sentenced to death, that happened at the penalty phase. When it was actually when the death penalty was handed down, is when they shaved all their hair off. And the girls outside did it as well, didn't they? Yeah. No, there's a book. No, there's a book called Lynn. There's actually a nicer book, and it's actually called Lynn or Lynette. It's a better book, yeah. But there've been other books. Yeah, there's a book called Squeaky, but that's more like, yeah, it's a self-published thing. But no, this is a proper book. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Before they met Manson, maybe they were picking up on his vibrations like the Beatles. Yeah, the vibes have been strong in LA, much closer than London. Yeah, that's it. That they say weird lyrics about girls shaving their heads, and that's before Manson was even in. Yeah, that part of America, isn't it? Wasn't it 68 when he got out of jail even? Yes, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, so he was still in jail. Manson hadn't even got out of prison yet. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. What's that about? Yeah. Who collected the hay, innit? Yeah. What's the hair shaving crew about the wig shops? Yeah. Oh, I know Nicholas, don't worry about Shrek. I know him. He's got no fucking interest in spreading false information about this thing, And everything that he says about the killing of Sharon Tate is accurate as well. You can find it at other sources. Yeah, it's not inaccurate what he says. It really was her lawyers, and Bugliosi also knew it was going to happen and didn't stop them as well, which is controversial. Yeah, yeah, they did it. when the death penalty was handed down. From what I looked, they at the beginning of when the death penalty gets handed down is when they carve their X's, and on the day that they actually are told that they've definitely got the death penalty is when they've all shaved their hair off. From what I could glean. No, we don't really get it in the UK. Well, we probably do now if you go in like Costa Coffee or Starbucks or whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. Oh god, he's done loads of research. He's done fucking decades of it, and yeah. And the first and second editions of the Manson file are nothing like the final edition that he's written now, and all this sort of stuff. He has definitely done his research and had to change it and correct things that were wrong in the second edition and all this sort of shit. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, when they were found guilty, they do the X's, and then when the death penalty is handed down, they all shave their hair off. Excuse me, smoking on stream as well. I hope that doesn't upset anyone. But I need it after talking about all this crap again. But yeah, and I've written Substacks to go with the old two streams, and like I said, that Dennis Hopper interview, I've just put that on the Substack as well. So that's interesting. If you're interested in Dennis Hopper, 'cause he talks about a lot of other stuff as well. But he talks about what he said when he met Manson. Look, Mel, I think you were saying you were interested in what they talked about when he met Manson. He does say a bit more than I read out there. That's paraphrased. But yeah, he definitely sounds like he admired Manson. But there is comments from him in a later interview where he says he actually hated Manson really, so he obviously backpedals a bit in later interviews. But yeah, it's all right. Yeah, you can't smell the smoke, can you? That's it. You're not gonna get. So sorry, you can't smell the smoke, can you? You're not getting secondhand smoke. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I think they must have done it themselves. And the thing is, as well, how did the girls get razors as well? Because I do know a girl who shaved her head with a big razor, but you need bloody scissors to cut it off first, and then carry on with like, how did they get scissors and razors when they were like in trial as well? So they would have been under extra security because you're more of a suicide risk and all this shit. It's like, how did they do this stuff? And they got the girls did the X's by heating a bobby pin and branding it. Manson carved his. Yeah, find out all this information just to yeah, just because it bothered me. But all the girls heated a bobby pin and branded the X into their forehead. But Manson's was carved, and then later it's a prison tattoo that you had to keep getting renewed. And a prison tattoo literally means they put ink on your skin and poke it through with a pin. It's horrible, yeah. That's how they do prison tattoos. Yeah, that is a strong rumor, isn't it? Whether it's fucking true or not, but apparently they say there was LSD sewn into the hems of some of the dresses they had. So I'm guessing it's the day they walk in the fancy dresses singing. They're tripping, yeah. Postage stamp and balloons as well. Why would you send them balloons in prison as well? Yeah, it would have been like branding it, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah. Horrible. Well, some of the girls after Manson went to prison did join up with white supremacists, didn't they? But that's probably to do with Aryan Brotherhood stuff. Manson needed the protection of the Aryan Brotherhood, and so he promised the girls on the outside to Aryan Brotherhood people on the outside. And the Hells Angels are heavily linked to the bloody Aryan Brotherhood. Hells Angels will become Aryan Brotherhood when they're in prison, apparently. I saw in the recent documentary. So I don't know whether that makes them Nazis exactly, and did the girls really believe it, or were they just forced to go? Because they were Manson's girls, he was still controlling them even from prison. But I know Gypsy seemed quite serious about the bloke she was with and renounced Manson pretty quickly and ran off with him, didn't she? Yeah, yeah. Is that right towards the end of the penalty phase? They all do the X's, yeah. And a lot of the girls who didn't go to prison did X's on their foreheads as well. You can find a few stories from the ex-girls who are talking about having to have the scar removed and that. Girls who tried to move on afterwards who didn't go, like Sandy and Squeaky and stay dedicated their whole lives, who tried to move on, talking about having to have the scar removed and having to explain to a plastic surgeon why they've got, you know, a scar on their forehead, like that, an X in their forehead. But I think most of them would have just healed naturally. It wouldn't have been that deep a scar. It depends how deep they bloody burned it, doesn't it? Yeah. What? Nancy Pittman got caught with acid in a balloon for Manson. What? So she was trying to hand him a balloon while she was visiting him? Do you mean? Or were they going to try and fucking float it over the wall or some shit? How do you mean? Did she have a balloon with her that she was going to try and give him in the visiting room? Sorry, just looking at the chat. You don't doubt that when they were hanging out with the bikers, that they were involved with Nazism. The bottomless pit story seems to really be about the pre-World War II Nazi compound in southern CA. Yeah, and oh, what's the name of the guy? Retz. I think it's Frank Retz. I talk about him on a stream. I think it's the Killing of Shorty Shay, and Nicholas met him. I've got pictures of him and Nicholas standing around Spahn Ranch, you know, the land. And Frank Retz, and he was involved at the time. He met the Manson girls, and he didn't like the Manson family. He wanted George Spahn to get rid of them because he wanted to do something else with the ranch, basically. But he was a Nazi. He was actually a proper Nazi, apparently. One of the like guys that wanted to come over and set it up in America. Frank Retz, he was called, and he was involved with Spahn Ranch. So there is some weird, obscure connection to Nazis with them. I think that's the Shorty Shay stream where I talk about Frank Retz. But Squeaky mentions him in her book as well. Lynette, sorry, I should call her Lynn. She's mentioned in yeah. Where is it? I've got a book of. But she mentions him briefly. She hates it. She hated him. She says hateful things about Frank Retz. Yeah, yeah. She married Kenneth Como in 1975. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, LSD liquid is powerful. A lot in a small container. Yeah, it wouldn't have to be full. Yeah, yeah, well, very small amounts of it. Yeah, but as liquid, I think they would probably try and do it as blotters, wouldn't they? So smuggling it internally, you'd be too likely to absorb it. It'd have to be very well wrapped, wouldn't it? And I don't think in them days they even had to do that. They still could just conceal it in their clothing and hand it over. It wasn't as hard as it is now. If you're visiting someone in prison to hand them something, you know. Yes, I had read that it was sewn into the hems of clothing that was being sent to them and stuff like that. You know, they could still get away with that in those days. And also, you can soak a letter in liquid LSD and stuff like that. Apparently, that was done a lot in prison. So that you just rip off parts of the letter and eat it. Whoa, ow! Cat was going to fall off my lap. He sticks his claws right in my leg. Oh, that's you talk about belladonna, but it wasn't belladonna. It was actually Jimson weed or datura, as they call it now, or it's also referred to as another plant name for it. They had misidentified the plant. They thought it was belladonna, which is the same plant family but slightly weaker, a bit safer to take. But datura is mega crazy, yeah, and that's what Tex took, and he ended up getting arrested for public intoxication. Oh my god! Right across my face. Yeah. No, Up and Away is about smuggling dope in balloons installation. Jimmy Webb is the one that Mummy Cass is supposed to have confessed that she did go to Cielo Drive and see Jimmy Folger on the lawn, she said. Yeah, hi Key. Dramatic entrance. Straight over my face. Yeah, yeah, there is a Stevie Nicks album called Belladonna as well, yeah. And in like British murder mysteries like Agatha Christie, it's a poison that women use to kill people because it is atropine. You know, in a strong enough dose, it would kill you. But yeah, and it's associated with like witchcraft and trying to contact higher entities and stuff like that. That's the reason people take it for the trip. But if you take too much, you'll die. And Tex is lucky he didn't die. Sounds like he overdosed horribly. Yeah, Murphy Ranch was the Nazi compound in Santa Monica. This is what seems to have inspired Charlie's bottomless pit. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, Frank Retz. I've got to find out more about him because, like I say, I couldn't believe Squeaky mentioned the name as well. Nicholas first told me about him, and he showed me pictures of when he met him, and they're in the Spun Ranch stream. Oh, it's tracking now, so it's gonna track the camera, track the cat when he moves. Yeah, Silence of the Dresses was another LSD mover. Rumor, sorry. Yeah, yeah. Nightshade is the plant family. So belladonna and Jimson weed, and there's a few others are in the nightshade plant. So the nightshade family. So all those plants would make you trip. Some are stronger than others. But Jimson weed or datura is the strongest one, the worst one. And it's not a nice trip. People who take it seriously take it for spiritual reasons. You don't take it for a laugh. You know, it's a very, very serious thing. And it can kill you. It is fucking poison. If you take too much, it will fucking kill you. And it's really hard to predict how strong the plant is because all plants vary. Like you can't say, oh, the roots are strong, but the leaves are okay. Like you might take a leaf off one plant and then take a leaf off the same plant, but it's way stronger than the first leaf you smoked, and you mess yourself up. Yeah. Human Highway was directed by Neil Young. Yeah. Henbane. I'm not sure which one is Henbane. No, I don't think Henbane is Belladonna. No. I think yeah, they would have just called it Belladonna probably. I'll look into that though. Which one Henbane is? I know Henbane's a poison. Yeah, but I'm not sure if it is Belladonna. I'll have to look into it. How long have we been going? Only been going 46 minutes, haven't we? We could go to an after show anyway, and you could join me again on our underground. Because yeah, like I say, I just wanted to talk about Lawrence Schiller again because he is such a significant character, and it also contributes to showing how the media exploited this thing, and the amount of how much it was reflected in films and all this sort of stuff. Like I'm going to get into Apocalypse Now at 1.2, and the fact Dennis Hopper appears to have become so obsessed with him, Charles Manson, that is. But it's not that weird for murders to affect American cinema. Because I actually studied film as well. I studied English literature and film and psychology when I was younger. And it's happened before. A lot of stalk and slash films and other American horror films are inspired by Ted Bundy and Ed Gein. So it's not that weird that there's so many films that seem to have a Manson-esque vibe because a lot of the other ones, a lot of stalk and slash films are inspired by Ted Bundy. Sorry, yeah, Ted Bundy, isn't it? Who break into that sorority house and murdered quite a few women. I think he killed 4 or 5 women, didn't he? And one woman survived. But that inspired loads of horror films. The whole stalk and slash genre basically is inspired by Ted Bundy. And Ed Gein collected human skin, didn't he? So lots of films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs are the two that spring to mind, where the serial killer's collecting skin and trying to make a skin suit. So it's not that weird for there to be reflected in American media, murders that have happened, but it does seem weird. There's a lot more stuff about the Manson family. The day after Susan had that meeting in Caruso's downtown office, there was a press conference the next day at the indictment of Gary Hinman. The Gary Hinman trial, he means. That's when it started to leak for the Tate killings, December the 2nd, yeah. And that's just before she does the grand jury as well, isn't it? Because that's not part of the trial, that's all pre-trial. Grand jury and pre-trial. The trial doesn't start till July. It's very confusing. So yeah, so that came out before she'd even done the grand jury then. Yeah, that's when it was leaked. Yeah. Like I say, no matter how you feel about them or what they did, it's not a fair trial, is it? And so it's not really justice for anyone, is it? The victims and all that. If fucking it was all a load of bunk. My light has disappeared now. Always happens to me. Uh, Yeah, because she was also tried for Hinman, wasn't she? She was tried again. And Manson had a second trial. He was tried for Hinman and Shorty Shay. People don't talk about that. No one talks about that. Then you gave me a clip of Manson walking in or out of his second trial, didn't you? That's in that Manson Shadows video I've got. But yeah, Manson had another trial. Oh yeah, I bought a book. I was going to show this towards the end. Yeah, well we've got time. Right, got this book in the charity shop here. Serial murderers. He shouldn't really be mentioned because he's not a serial murderer. But there was one picture here that I haven't seen anywhere else. Yeah, it's got, and it does seem to question the narrative a bit. It's not just. Where is the one? Look at that. I've not seen that picture of him as a child. I don't think as well. Well, Terminal. I've not seen that Terminal Island mugshot actually. Look, there's a Terminal Island. Oh, sorry. Oh no, no, the camera's tracking. Come on, this way. That's it. He said, yeah, one of them says Terminal Island. I'll post pictures of these in, online. Sorry, that's not very clear, is it? But yeah, there's his Terminal Island mugshot. I've never seen that before. I've seen the Mendocino mugshot. That's it. Oh, and there is one more. There's one of him in the back of a van. Oh, topless ones of Sandy and Lynette. Won't show that here. Where is it? Yeah, it's a big long section. There. That one. I've never seen that picture of him, and that's his second trial, apparently. That's it. Film the picture there. But that is Manson looking at the back of the prison van on his second trial. I also got this one as well. There's no Manson stuff in it. It's actually not very good. There's a bit about Bonnie and Clyde. I've just read the section on Bonnie and Clyde, and I wasn't very impressed. I don't think it's very accurate. Yeah, that's another thing we can talk about. If you're in the Facebook groups and on the subreddit and that, share your true crime book calls. Yeah, Shorty Shay. He was tried for Shorty Shay and Gary Hinman at the same time, I think, because he was found guilty of Gary Hinman as well, wasn't he? Yeah. Oh, God, if Alien Buenos had to fight the dating game killer. Don't know, Alien Buenos seemed to, yeah, be quite good at overpowering men, didn't she? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, women will fight dirty. That's how you survive, yeah. Yeah, I think I'll end this now because it's gone on for 50 minutes. That's long enough, isn't it? Thank you for coming. Sorry about the sound mishap at the beginning there. I'll fuck up the beginning now. I get all flustered. Yeah, you think Aileen would win as well? Yeah, I reckon Aileen would probably kill him. Yeah. Yeah, what's Aileen got though? She got a knife or a mace. Didn't she use a gun? Didn't she shoot them? I thought she had a gun, didn't she? Yeah. No, no one's gonna fight a gun, are they? No one's gonna win against a gun, are they? If he's not got a gun and she's got a gun. You have that picture of him in the prison van, do you? Yeah, I'd never seen that one. He's got really short hair, hasn't he? And yeah. Yeah, I did, but was it every time? Did she shoot the bloke? I think it was every time, wasn't it? Yeah, it was shooting, not stabbing, wasn't it? And didn't she take the gun off her first victim as well? It was actually in his glove compartment. And the sad thing about it is, the first victim probably really did rape her. He was a convicted rapist. And she opened his glove compartment and found his own gun and shot him with it and escaped with it. And it was the gun of her first victim. I'm not sure if that's totally accurate. I'll have to look into it. So I've watched movies about her that maybe fucking up what is true. Really. Oh no. Yeah, that's not about Alien Buenos, though, is it? No. Yeah, I'll end this now because we've gone on for 55 minutes. That's long enough, isn't it? Thank you for coming, everyone. Like I say, oh, and look at this. Check out the Substack. People are loving the Substack, and that Dennis Hopper interview was popular as well. And like I say, I'm adding the Substacks to the pinned comments of streams as well, so you can find them easier. Because it's easier to digest all the information in a written article than it is to absorb it all watching the stream. I think if you're interested in reading articles, yeah. And I put a lot of effort into it. Obviously I try quite hard. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's been buying me coffees as well. A lot of people have been sending me buying me coffees, so that's good. And I've also turned on the paid subscriptions on Substack. But yeah, not expecting anyone to do that yet, but maybe, you never know. I'll end this now and I'll come back in about 5 minutes and do an after show. I'll see you in a minute. Thanks for coming and I'll see you next week. If you're not coming to the after show. No night.